Good afternoon and welcome. I greet you with the greetings of respect. Welcome to this day of opportunities, possibilities, miracles, and choices. A great day to be here, the day of the grand eclipse. Some of you will visualize it, will see it, hopefully without incident or anything, with the proper lenses on. Many things are available and possible for us on this day. So let me begin. I've got a different phone set up here, so I'm trying to adjust to it as we go along. Let me thank those of you who have been very supportive in sharing the things that you've shared. You shared the messages, you've shared the video. Thank you for doing that. Curious, how has that gone for you when you've talked to other people about some of the things that we have been talking about? Last week we talked about the A, because we're in this series of crisis intervention strategies, what to do when all else fails, that thing that makes you want to holler, scream, throw up both your hands. What do you do then? So that's what we've been talking about. So last week we dealt with addressing the issue. We talked about not just complaining about what's going on and telling everybody what's wrong or who's wrong. We talked about not addressing the symptoms of what's happening, not just the argument, not just something external, but taking the time to get down to the root of what's going on. We talked about not ignoring the issue. That's what we talked about addressing. How did that go? Did you take the time to address some issues that you may have, concerns that you might have? Did you share that with someone else and say, let's not talk about the symptom. That's a symptom. Let's get to the root of it. Let's not just complain. Let's talk about some problem solving here. Did you do that with anybody? And were they open to receive it? You may be surprised to find everybody's not really interested in resolving things that say they're interested in it. You find that out a little different when you start to actually have that conversation with them. Well, that's what we talked about then. So this week, before we get into it, we relax and breathe. And the system that I'd like you to consider using is simply this: by way of demonstration, unplug. Just that simple act of unplugging will remove the distractions so that you're better able to listen to the messengers that are inside, the messengers or messages that are in nature, that's always screaming for our attention. When you're a student of life, everybody that you meet becomes a teacher or messenger. Everything that happens becomes a message that can help you better figure out how to manage things through life, but you've got to disconnect to be able to do that. So this last weekend, I was traveling from the event I was working at is in the Ozarks, but the airport was in Kansas City. So it was a 3-hour drive that I had to go. And I found myself by default in a position of being unplugged, especially since I couldn't figure out how to get the GPS to work through the radio, and just disconnecting. But I was around a lot of trees and open spaces. And the more I traveled, the more relaxed I became. I listened to what was nature actually telling me. What was I learning from the things that I'm seeing? Listen to the inner voice. So to relax and breathe, sometimes we have to remove all the distractions. Try that. We keep our phones connected all the time, our laptops, our tablets. I'm at the airports and different places, and people always have something in their ears and not noticing even what was around. Let me tell you something. When I was at the event this last weekend, I went by the water because I love the water, and was filming so I could possibly show others what the sunset looked like on the water. And I was filming and caught some beautiful images. But when I listened to the video later, I started hearing sounds I didn't even pay attention to when I was shooting the video because I was so busy doing one thing. If you stay connected, even if it's for the benefit of one thing, you might be losing something else. Try to unplug. Allow yourself an hour, 30 minutes, no telephone, not even putting it on silent and looking to see who called, because that can be a distraction, take you out of your zone. No television, no radio, no internet, no nothing. Give yourself 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever's comfortable for you, and listen to the inner voice. Let me remind you, that's not going to be easy. There's an experiment in your free time. You can look it up. It's called Virginia Shock Experiment Treatment, where they took college students, put them in a room with nothing for 15 minutes, told them to do absolutely nothing, and they would pay them at the end, or they could shock themselves with an electric shock. The majority of them shocked themselves because they couldn't stand the noise of their inner voice and the messages that they were hearing. Too difficult to operate without distraction. Try to find a minute to unplug. That's your suggestion for relaxing and breathing on this 30th episode segment that we have here. Which brings us now to the M of S.C.R.E.A.M. We've dealt with all of them. And by the way, next week I intend to just kind of summarize them all in one segment. But this time is the M. You can't get all of them, so I'm going to just give you one area, talk about that a little bit. The M stands for move. What to do when you feel like the world is closing in on you and you feel like you want to holler and scream. You might just need to move. There's at least 3 different things I want to talk about that. One is physically moving around, maybe exercising, maybe going for a walk. When you don't physically move, you may feel like your house is closing in on you. You may feel like your job is closing in on you. Move around, walk, exercise, but you might want to have somebody with you, because you ever been out and see people just mindlessly moving and end up becoming a victim of some crime or walking in the street. So you might want to have somebody to help monitor you as you move or be conscious about your movement. But the act of movement itself might allow the blood to flow so that you can think of resolution for the situation that's causing stress for you. When you become stagnant and not moving, things will close in, your environment will engulf you, and it'll be more difficult to move. Just like sitting too long. When you try to move, it's going to be difficult. You lay in a bed, they turn patients so that they won't get the bed sores of sitting still or laying in one spot. Moving is healthy, might help you manage a difficult situation. So you want to think about moving. A movie or a special that was done by the History Channel was called Life After People. And it was talking about what happens to the structures of the world if people weren't here for 10 years, 100 years, 500 years. What would happen to all these structures? They say eventually they would be consumed by their environment and they would be gone. That's what happens when you don't move debris from around structures and things. It gets engulfed. If we don't move ourselves, we'll become engulfed in that experience, and all we'll be thinking about is what's gone wrong, what's not happening, what someone did, what somebody didn't do. Try to move. That's the first part. The second part of moving is your ABCs. You might need to move your attitude, because if you move your body and you don't shift your mindset, you're going to find yourself in the same place or creating the same experience. When I worked for an organization, on occasion I would take young people and adults as well to different places in the city to show them possibilities of what was available. Many could not see the availability of things or the options because they never changed their mindset. They were judgmental about everything that they saw, critical of things they experienced. They never saw the beauty outside of their own experience because they never shifted their attitude or their mindset. So don't think about just moving your body. Think about moving your mind, your attitude. Think about shifting possibly the beliefs that you might have that may be causing you to have the frustrations that you have now. Maybe it's a belief, maybe it's a behavior that you're practicing that's keeping you from having relief from the problems that you might be experiencing that makes you want to holler. Are you willing to adjust those beliefs? Maybe you need to adjust the C, which is your company. You know, I always say that we become like the people we spend time around. Are you willing to move your company? Either move away from certain people who you know may be toxic and not good for your well-being, or move them away from you. Now, you may have people at your job you can't physically move. People in your family you can't physically move. But you can sure prioritize them, can't you? You can prioritize and control how much time you allow them to take up of yours, how much time you allow them to take up of your space. So think about that moving piece in terms of your attitude, your behavior, as well as the company you keep. And before I hit the last area, I want to ask you something. If you hear what it is that you need to do through this crisis intervention discussion, are you willing to do anything different? Are you interested in just keeping your same attitude, your same beliefs, the same company you keep, and hoping everything else to change around you? So if you hear, maybe I need to adjust my attitude, are you willing to make that kind of change to get the results that you want to have in your life? The last area, the third area, is you might literally need to relocate. You're having experiences that's a problem for you. You're feeling stressed out, feel like you want to holler and scream. You might need to literally relocate. There are some opportunities that you won't find in your block. You won't find them maybe in your town. You can't get all, you know how I say at the beginning, welcome to a day of opportunities and possibilities and miracles, right? All of them are not going to show up on your doorstep. You can't walk to all the opportunities that are available. There are some things that you have to literally relocate. Maybe you can't get the opportunities that you need that's causing you stress in your job. Maybe relocation is necessary. In the place that you've chosen to live, maybe you need to move. Consider that. But be mindful that in you doing that, there may be people who will feel regret because you're making a move and try to cause you to feel guilty about doing something different. Be conscious of those who may try to cling on and keep you stuck in a situation that may be working for them, just not working for you. You won't get to that until you are still and you've unplugged to assess, wait a minute, is this path really working for me? Is this relationship really working? Is this job, career really working for me? Last point about moving, be conscious to not reject the message because of the messenger. We constantly are being reminded and given opportunities to hear the things that we need to hear so that we can evolve to the place that we need to evolve to. But if you're stuck mentally and you don't want to hear it from certain people, you might miss a critical message. Be careful to not reject the message because of the messenger. Consider moving so that you can handle this intervention strategy so that you're not overwhelmed with that feeling of just wanting to throw up both your hands and scream and holler. I feel like I was talking fast because I'm so much I wanted to share with you. And during these segments that I can only give you a piece of it. This M part is even longer than this. In my workshops or when we do Facebook in a live venue, you're going to get more of this. So that being the case, I want you to look for creating an opportunity to move, to shift. Just that act of, like I'm doing right now, I see possibilities and things that I can't see just by looking this way. Create an opportunity for you to move, for you to adjust your attitude, maybe, for you to adjust your beliefs, possibly, your behavior, maybe, to assess the people that's in your life. Create an opportunity to assess those things so that you can find relief. I encourage you to think of the possibilities of new things opening up for you. You being able to breathe easier. You not being stagnated or feeling that thing that happens when you stagnate and can't move. Think of the possibilities of what your life would be like. What about the people that you love? Someone in your circle of influence who can't hear me. They won't hear me, but they can hear you. And you know they're struggling with something. You've ran into them this last week, and you're probably going to run into them before we connect again. Share this with somebody. Share the message of moving with somebody. Think of the possibility of how someone in your inner circle might feel relieved if they could just figure out how to make it through a difficult period of a diagnosis, of a death, of some sort of loss, even a debt that they might be experiencing. Lastly, expect and experience the miracles that are going to expand in your journey as you become more mindful, as you unplug, as you become more present to notice what you notice that's around you. I want to thank you all for listening. Thank you for being a part of this. Pass this on to somebody. Share it as often as you can by video or the actual one. Next week, we summarize them all. So if you didn't want to watch all 5, you watch next week. We're going to summarize from the S all the way down to the M and the value of it. And I'll try to do that without talking too fast in a short amount of time. But until we cross paths again, those who are on domestic soil or those who are on foreign ground, I wish that you travel well with respect.